Welcome to Vox Populi Gear and Socketing Guide. Socketing is one of the most complex systems to the gear system in Vox Populi, and is one of the most important systems, as having good sockets can be the difference between a great set and a bad one. Having good matching sockets proc often and will provide a very significant difference to your combat ability, while having bad mismatched sockets will likely not proc often and provide little to no benefit in combat. Through the course of this guide, we will talk about socket enhancements and where to get them, the colors of the sockets and what they mean, fitted sockets and also how to get them, orbs and what each individual orb does, and I will also give you an example of how I would go about socketing some of the best gear for the maximum value of sockets. Now do note that every person on each server will likely socket differently, and there are a lot of opinions on the best quote-unquote way to socket gear. This is my personal opinion, this is how I do socket my armor and weapons, and is what works for me. Do note that I will not be going over each specific socket, and if you do want that specific information, please go to the description below and look at Nature Fox's list of each individual socket and what they do. Now, socketing is the system of socketing extra enhancements into your gear to give them bonus effects, such as bonus health, lifesteal, double strike, or status effects. You can acquire socket enhancements through dungeons or purchase them at spawn for a few gold blocks. There are 5 different colors representing sockets: blue for defensive, green for supportive, red for offensive, purple for permanent, and red for unique corrupted sockets or exotic sockets. Socketing is a very RNG based system. It can take a lot of time and a lot of money to try to get the sockets you want. If you do want to take some of that RNG out of the socketing system, you can purchase fitted sockets using doubloons from Karn every weekend in the Valeria Beach sewer. Through orbs, you can randomize the number of sockets, the color of sockets, and the value of sockets in your gear. Jeweler's orbs will randomize your socket number between 0 and 5. Chromatic, or chrome orbs for short, will randomize the color of the current sockets on your gear. Alteration orbs, or alt orbs for short, will randomize the actual sockets in each piece of gear. There are also colored alteration orbs for blue, red, and green that will only randomize that specific color of socket. Divine orbs will randomize the value of the sockets in your gear. Exaltation orbs, or exalts for short, have a chance to roll the enchantments on your armor to get an enchant that you did not currently have, or roll the current enchantments on your armor for higher or lower values. And last but not least, you have the Orb of Chaos, which has a chance to do 4 different things: to delete your socket, to replace your socket with a bad one, to leave the socket the same, or to upgrade the socket a random amount. Through the use of Orb of Chaos, you do have a chance to roll higher sockets than what is previously listed as the cap on dash sockets, but at the same time a very high chance of losing sockets or getting bad sockets in their place. If you do decide to corrupt the sockets on your gear, the sockets will turn red and will be locked, no longer being able to be changed. Red is also the color shared with your different unique sockets, sockets that can only be found on specific gear, called exotics, and also can be acquired on legendary gear. Now let's talk a little bit about how to get the best sockets or capped sockets on your gear. This is the order that I prefer to do it in, and once again it is my personal opinion. The first thing you want to do is grab your gear and make sure you have nothing else in your inventory, just in case you accidentally roll other gear that you do not intend to roll. The first thing you want to do is roll for the number of sockets using a Jeweler's Orb, all the way to a max of 5. After that, you want to take your chrome orbs and roll for the correct color of sockets for the sockets you want. After acquiring the correct color of sockets, you can go ahead and put the color sockets that you are not going to be fitting into your gear using fitted sockets. After doing so, put away your orbs and grab your alteration orbs and start rolling for the main color socket you want to get. For this specific project, I'm rolling for a green socket, specifically Alacrity, as the current offhand I'm rolling already has inspiration. Now that I've acquired the Alacrity socket I wanted, I grab my fitted socket for Musical Mind, which is the other green socket I want, and both of these values I do want to be max. Now that I've fitted the socket in, I will divine until I hit the max value for both of my green sockets. Just want to note here, I am checking the dash sockets tab to make sure I am getting the max values for the sockets I do want. Now I do want to cut in here and say that I was a little bit shocked about how quick I got my max values. That is very lucky. It's very uncommon, likely will not happen to you. My opinion, or generally expectation I would say, is 20 to 40 divine orbs until you hit max if you're rolling two different sockets. And now that I have maxed out the values for the socket I do have the most of, being green sockets for this time, I will start to colored alt for the values I want for my blue and red sockets. Now, after getting horribly unlucky trying to roll for a +5 Dragon Slayer red, I do come across a +5 Skeleton Slayer, which is also very good. I'm really hoping to get +5 Slayer, or two different +5 Slayer sockets on this, being a specific Slayer and a Monster Slayer. I thought about keeping Skeleton Slayer, decided against it, want the Dragon Slayer because I have been fighting dragons fairly frequently lately. So I keep rolling and pray to RNGesus. Now, after burning a few stacks of red alt orbs, I did finally get that Dragon Slayer +5, and now I just have to fit my fitted socket for Monster Slayer 5, and have max values for every single socket that I did want. Now I just want to kind of re-go over the different points in socketing your gear, at least of how I would do it if you do want to get the max values for your sockets. First, decide which specific sockets you want. Jeweler orb your sockets to get 5. Use your chromatic orb sockets to get the correct colors for the sockets you want. Find out if there is a fitted socket for any of the sockets you do want, preferably one of the sockets, if not both of the sockets you have multiple colors on. For example, if you have 2 reds or 2 blues on your weapon or armor, if you can find fitted for at least one of those 2, that would be best. Otherwise, put 2 normal sockets into that color and roll your alts on it until you get the 2 sockets you want. Proceed to divine that socket, and then use colored alts to alt for the max value of whichever sockets you only have one color of. After managing to do that, fit in using fitted to any socket you do have fitted sockets for that are already max value, and you're good to go. Do note, once again, this is my opinion, works for me, this is how I've done all of my armor sets, weapons, etc. If you are going to socket weapons and armor together, and you already are at a PT level, a high gear level where this is likely the last set you are going to be socketing for your class, I do very much recommend trying to socket for as similar sockets across the whole set as possible. By doing so, you will have higher values of the socket, and for most sockets, the higher value you do have, the more often it will proc. For certain sockets, such as lifesteal, it will also increase the effect. Lifesteal specifically will heal you for 1 health depending on the value, so per 1 value you heal 1 health, and procs more often the more you have. At 10 value of lifesteal, you will heal for 5 hearts when it procs, and it procs fairly often. At 20, it procs very often and heals for 10 hearts. And remember, while that does sound very strong, sockets is one of those things that each player will do differently and will socket for specific values that they prefer. I know a lot of players that will use 4 red sockets and 1 blue socket, using health for the blue socket, and socketing nothing but debuffs and other damaging effects for the rest of their sockets. On my side personally, I do like a defensive playstyle for PvE mainly, so I have a lot of blue sockets and not a lot of red sockets, socketing mainly for defensive value and survivability. In closing, you can try the way I socket and it does seem to work for me. As far as which sockets to pick, that is entirely up to you and your own personal playstyle. I do recommend you test and play around with the sockets a little bit before you do try to socket a high value PT or legendary set, and try to find the playstyle that fits you the best. But that is really all there is to it. Thanks for watching my guide to socketing, and if there is anything you think that needs to be improved or your personal opinions on socketing, please do toss that in the description below. Or if you like, you can PM me on Discord. I'm always looking to learn. Everything is trial and error, and everyone does do it differently to different degrees of success. And if you do have any other specific information you think there needs to be a guide for, please also toss that in the comments. I find myself with a lot of free time lately, so I will be trying to make more guides. If there is anything you feel like is incorrect, please do come in the comments and correct me. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I wish you the best of luck on your socketing experiences, and good luck!